Welcome back to another tabletop review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Hege Waffen AP-66 380 semi-automatic pistol. I found this Hege Waffen AP-66 380 pistol at a local gun shop last year. I was told it's pronounced Hege Waffen. Basically, it's sort of a Walther PP clone. But some of you may note that this gun looks very much like an Astra Constable, and there's a very good reason for that, but more on that later. Initially, I wasn't interested, even though I do collect Walther PP and PPK clones, and even though it had a really good price of only $225 on it. Why? Because there was no magazine, and the end of the safety lever was broken off. I checked on Hege AP-66 magazine, and there were absolutely none available. The shop owner thought an Astra Constable magazine would work, but I didn't want to take the risk, so I just walked away from it. Often we'll pick up firearms that need a little work, but no magazine available is usually a deal breaker for me. Each month I'd stop in to see what was new, and the AP-66 was still there month after month. Finally, the shop did get an Astra Constable magazine, and indeed it did work. They also found a replacement safety lever. Of course, the sale price for the AP-66 was now $70 higher. I was told the safety lever, uninstalled, had cost them about $20 and the magazine had cost them $50. Another thing, if you search the internet, you won't find much on the AP-66. The only YouTube videos I found weren't in English. But what the heck, I decided to make an offer. After some negotiating, we agreed on their original $225 price, and that was out the door, which I thought was a pretty good deal. So here it is, and yes, the magazine does work, and the safety lever was easy for me to install. It's actually a fairly nice made pistol. Perhaps not as good as a Walther, but still pretty nice. Now before we go any further, let's make sure this gun is cleared first, and by the way, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Let's take a look at the slide here. It says Hege Waffen, West Germany, AP-66, caliber 9mm short, which means 380. Here we see the Hege logo, which is a Pegasus and a circle with Hege at the lower left. But note that the slide does not say made in West Germany. Hege has never manufactured firearms. Hege is a German reseller who is known to have stamped the slides with a variety of logos, including AP-66 and even FN. On the trigger guard, we see the importer's information, CAI, Century Arms International, which would suggest this firearm was imported to the U.S. probably in the 1990s. We also see FEG clearly stamped here. FEG is a Hungarian firearms maker. We even see made in Hungary boldly stamped here. So it must be an FEG made firearm, right? But this is where things get a little confusing. So is this a Hungarian FEG PP clone made for Hege? Some people think so. Even the store I bought it from was convinced that was the case. A variety of FEG models were imported by and made available for sales at Century Arms back then, including the AP-66, the PA-63, and even used Walther's PPK-E models. Others suggest that it's very unlikely that this pistol was actually made by FEG. It's more likely FEG name was used for marketing purposes by CAI. FEG has a reputation for making pretty good stuff. But note that there are no Hungarian markings. Others believe this gun was actually made by Spanish gun manufacturer Astra. And I would agree. How, you might ask? Because this pistol does more than just appear to be identical to the Astra Constable. As you already know, the Astra Constable magazine and safety lever work in this Hege AP-66. And here's the thing. After 1927, all guns made in Spain are required to have proof marks. So can we find any Spanish proof marks on this gun? Well, you take off the left grip and yes we do. And here they are. And we see the Spanish date code of S1, which translates to 1974. As I understand, these Astra-made Hege pistols imported to the U.S. also carry a 7-digit serial number. And yep, that's what we have here. So I'm pretty sure this AP-66 isn't Hungarian at all, but rather a 1974 Astra-made or Spanish PP clone produced for Hege or German and imported into the U.S. probably in the 1990s. Now that's not all bad, since Astra is well known for producing some pretty good stuff, like the Astra Constable model, and also for copying popular firearm designs. Not surprisingly, Astra appears to do quite a bit of producing of their own guns for other companies with the company's name on them. One notable example is the Colt Jr. And note that Hege or Astra Constable is very similar to the Walther PP, but it's also different, having a slide stop and a takedown procedure unlike the Walther. Some might argue that these differences were good improvements. Although not the same quality as the German Walthers, these Hege AP-66 pistols were known to be well made and actually offer more affordable alternatives as a decent carry firearm. I collect Walther Cones, and I'll say that for the money, the AP-66 is actually a pretty good one. And if you're looking for information on the Astra Constable 380, it would appear that the Hege AP-66 is actually the same gun. That might be good to know. If you're looking for parts for the AP-66, look for Astra Constable parts, because they're the same. By the way, the Astra Constable was made between 1965 and 1991. It was also made in a .22 version and a .380 double-stack version, the Astra A60, which was adopted for use by the Spanish military. I'll bet you didn't know that. There was no packaging with this gun, but I believe that some AP-66s were offered in cardboard boxes, though I'd never seen any. As 90s imports, most of these guns were probably just wrapped in gun paper and shipped in bulk. No extra magazine or even a manual, but if you know different, please let me know. The good news here is that an Astra Constable manual, since it's the same gun, will suffice. As for specifications, the Hege Waffen AP-66 380 pistol is a blowback designed double single action firearm with a fixed barrel. The slide and frame are blued carbon steel. The grips are plastic. Sights are fixed blade with windage adjustable rear. Slide serrations on the rear of the slide are well defined. The slide release is here. The safety decocker is here, up for fire. Putting the safety on will decock the pistol. The safety decocker is not ambidextrous. The hammer is exposed. The mag release is located here. Magazines are 7-round. Similar to a Glock, the takedown tabs are here. The barrel is 3.5 inches in length. Overall length is 6.5 inches. Overall height is 4.5 inches. Width is 1 1/8 inches. Unloaded weight is 23.7 ounces. Loading the 7-round magazine is fairly easy. Remember, this is an Astra Constable magazine, but it does seem to work just fine. The slide is easy to rack, even with the hammer down, but not with the safety on. Pushing the safety up to unlock is light and smooth. I should say that a PPKS was my everyday carry for many years. One of my complaints about the PPK is that getting the safety off slowed me down a bit. If I carry the PPK today, I tend to carry it in a holster with the safety off and rely on the heavy double action trigger pull to provide the needed measure of safety. I probably do the same with this gun. That brings us to the trigger. In double action mode, the pull feels like maybe 10 pounds, but smooth, rolling off nicely at the end. Very similar to the Walther PP, except there's a noticeable half cock. In single action mode, the pull is almost too light for my taste, maybe less than 2 pounds. The first time I fired this gun, I had the hammer back and thought I'd barely touched the trigger. That was a surprise, but with some practice, I'm getting used to it now. Reset is short, sure, and light. Very nice. The AP-66 has small sights, but unlike the Walther driftable, the AP-66 rear sight has an easier screw adjustable sight for windage. The pistol feels good in my hand. Thicker grips than the Walther, which I quite like. Good balance. Pointing seems natural. Accuracy at 25 feet, my typical training distance, was very good. Now, I've only loaded 4 rounds to start. I just want to test this gun's single action trigger, which I think is quite light. Not bad. Let's try a little controlled rapid fire with a full magazine. Pretty good. Let's try some alternating targets. How about the head and 2 smaller targets? Very nice. I'll admit, I do like this gun. As for cons, there's so little out there specifically on the Hege Waffen AP-66 380 pistol, so I had to research the Astra Constable for relevant pros and cons. Within that context, the unavailability of parts was the biggest issue. Since you might be searching for Astra parts for your AP-66, this could be a major problem. The AP-66 is also a bit heavier than the Walther PP. From what I could observe, the AP-66 overall function is good, but not as smooth as the Walther. The fit and finish are okay, but not great, and the usual complaints about the Walther limited capacity and smaller sights apply to the AP-66. Firing the AP-66, some have complained about the recoil, but that does not seem to be a big issue with this one. As for pros, to its credit, the AP-66 is a pretty good reflection of the famous Walther PP, but with a very affordable price. True, the AP-66 may not be the same quality production standards as the Walther, but it's still pretty well made. There are those that believe that the Glock-like takedown system, and especially the addition of the slide release and adjustable rear sight, were major improvements over the Walther design. The AP-66 feels good in the hand, points well, and has very good accuracy. Its maintenance is easy, and this one has functioned flawlessly for hundreds of rounds. While I know there's been criticism regarding the AP-66's long-term reliability, I believe the AP-66 is still a viable carry pistol. Disassembly is simple and easy. Make sure it's empty. Remove the magazine. Pull down on these takedown tabs while pulling back on the slide and lifting up. Then remove the slide forward and off the gun. The recoil spring can be removed from the barrel for cleaning, and that's it. Reassembly is basically the opposite. Return the recoil spring if you removed it. Return the slide to the frame, bring it back and down while pulling down on the takedown tabs. Allow the slide to move forward. Then test for function and return the magazine. There's no price listed for the AP-66, so once again we have to look at the Astra Constable. Genetron.com lists a used Astra Constable 380 at $350 today. My guess is that the Hege Waffen AP-66 would probably be priced a bit below that value, maybe $300. But a few recent sales of the AP-66 I could find, $350 was indeed common, so Genetron's projected Astra Constable value would appear to hold for the AP-66 as well. As for holsters, being a Walther PP clone, the AP-66 does fit many of my PP and PPKS holsters, which is a good thing because I have a bunch of those. Of course, with its longer barrel, it's even a better fit for my PP holsters. Now, before we end today's video, I'd like to remind you that if you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe down below. And thanks for watching. The Hege Waffen AP-66 is actually just a Spanish-made Astra Constable. This one was produced in 1974, and it is in very good condition. Unfortunately, originally, it was missing its magazine and had a broken safety lever, but once repaired, it's functioned flawlessly. Designed around the Walther PP, PPK, The AP-66 differs from the Walther in its takedown procedures and the sporting of its handy slide release and adjustable rear sight. They share virtually identical dimensions, but the AP-66's level of craftsmanship falls just a little short of the Walther's. Even so, the Hege Waffen AP-66 is an attractive all-metal gun that's very well made, accurate, and dependable, and can be probably found in either the Hege Waffen or the Astra Constable configuration for about $350 today, compared to the Walther PPKS at about $900 new today. So wrapping up, after a few months of ownership and a few trips to the range, what do I really think of the AP-66? Well, if you're like me and like the Walther PP and PPKs, I think you appreciate this Hege Waffen AP-66, although you'll note the differences. My relationship with this particular Walther PP PPK style pistol had a rocky start, but once the missing and broken parts were replaced, this AP-66 exceeded my expectations. Sure, it's obviously not a Walther, but it's close enough overall in feel and features. And it looks good, and it's well made. With good fit and finish, it has good accuracy, it feels right in my hand, and I find that it points naturally, as most of the better Walther PP PPK clones tend to. Personally, I like it. And I even sort of like that it's a Hege Waffen AP-66, because it's a little unusual. You just don't see many of these around. And you know, as a collector of PP PPK clones, I had the Astra Constable on my wish list for years. But now with this Hege Waffen AP-66, what do you think? Should I check the box or not? I suppose, given that I've definitively proven this is actually an Astra Constable labeled as a West German Hege Waffen, perhaps I can. Any weapon you carry is better than the one you left at home. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll be back for my next tabletop review. Until next time, stay safe.